This week on Holiday Baking Championship, the bakers were asked to make a quick bread wreath. Quick bread wreaths. Quick bread wreaths. So I thought, why not make mini spiced bundt cakes with a bourbon glaze and make them look like adorable little wreaths. I'm Zach Young, welcome to my home kitchen, and this is Holiday Baking Championship Extra Sweet. All right, so we have 2 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We'll add a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. Now, you can substitute any of your favorite warm fall, winter spices in here, but just keep it to a tablespoon. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. We'll also add a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and we'll whisk it all together. Just make sure the lumps get out. Flour gets a little lumpy, but you don't have to sift this one, all right? You can keep your grandmother's sifter in the cupboard. So you can make this in a stand mixer. You can also, go old school with the hand mixer. But to our bowl, we'll add 2 sticks of unsalted butter at room temperature. Now, you want your butter to be at room temperature when you're baking cakes, when you're baking cookies, not just because it's a time saver, but when you go to incorporate the sugar, beat the sugar and the butter together, you get that nice aeration that you won't get if the butter's cold. So plan ahead, room temperature butter, 1 2/3 cup of granulated sugar, and we'll start beating. Okay, so light and fluffy, and when you're beating the butter and the sugar, or as we call it, creaming, you're incorporating air into the butter. You're also using those sugar granules to pierce through the butter to create more aeration. This is going to give your cake or cookie that extra lift. So we'll add our eggs one at a time, 4 eggs at room temperature. Keep your eggs warm. But don't microwave your eggs. You can't cheat that. One-handed. I'm just showing off now. Light and fluffy. So we'll add a tablespoon of vanilla extract and a 1/2 cup of sour cream. If you wanted to infuse some different flavors in here, you could totally add some orange extract to this, or even a little spiced rum. Why not? Now we'll alternate our whisked dry ingredients with our 3/4 cup of buttermilk. So we'll start with our dry. We'll add about 1/3, low speed. I cannot tell you how many times I have made it snow in my kitchen by forgetting to turn the mixer down. And you just want to mix until the dry's incorporated, so just until the flour disappears. We'll add 1/2 of our buttermilk, the next 1/3 of our flour mixture, and the rest of our buttermilk. Now we alternate the wet and dry because if we added all of the buttermilk in the beginning and then the flour would clump because there's too much liquid. If we added all the flour first, the mixture would be too dry and then you'd overbeat it trying to thin it out with the buttermilk. All right, let's get baking. So, to make our wreaths, we are going to use these mini bundt pans, which are pretty amazing because guess what they look like? Little wreaths. I'm actually going to butter my pans with a brush. This is your insurance policy that they will come out. There is nothing sadder than taking one of these out of the oven and standing there like this for 10 minutes and it not coming out. I mean, honestly, that's how you ruin Christmas. So, grease well. All right, now, to get the batter into the molds, I like to use a piping bag, disposable piping bags. There's so many uses for them in the kitchen. You can absolutely just spoon this batter in, but I think using the piping bag, it's a lot faster, cleaner. And to fill up a piping bag, whether you're doing it with frosting or cake batter, pancake batter if you're piping mini pancakes, I like to use these little takeout containers. Save them when you order takeout. Not that I order takeout like every night, but these containers, not just great for storage, they're also great for holding things like a piping bag. Ooh, just cut the tip off Pro tip, by the way, keep track of your plastic tips because these will end up everywhere, in your cake, in your frosting, on the floor. So when you cut the tip off of a disposable pastry bag, take the tip and throw it in the trash. Okay, now I know it's not gonna end up anywhere. This comes from personal experience. Raise your hand if you have been wronged by the tip of a disposable pastry bag. So we're filling our batter up in these molds about 3/4 of the way. If you fill your cake all the way to the top, it'll just bubble over. You'll have to clean the oven. Everything will light on fire. I like to give these cakes a little bit of a tap just to make sure that batter falls into all those little creases. And annoy my neighbors. So let's bake these. 350 degrees, preheated oven. Bake it for about 30 minutes until a toothpick comes out clean and you'll see the cakes pulling away from the sides a little bit. So, our spice bundt cakes have been out of the oven and cooling on the wire rack for 15 minutes. They're still a little bit warm. This is the perfect time to unmold them. You don't want to wait for the bundt cakes to completely cool because they might not come out. So there's a perfect in-between moment here. You can just loosen the sides with a toothpick or a cake skewer. And you can see these are like pulling away, so I'm pretty confident. And now, one movement. Oh. All right, let's go 2 for 2. We'll let our cakes cool completely before we glaze them. This is a classic powdered sugar glaze. Use it for cookies, use it for donuts. 3 cups of powdered sugar, 3 tablespoons of bourbon, because it's the holidays. If you don't want to use bourbon, you can absolutely use lemon juice or orange juice or even coffee. Just remember you're adding food coloring to it, so if it's something that is, really gonna throw the color off, maybe don't use it. And we'll add 2 tablespoons of whole milk. And I keep a little extra bourbon or milk on standby. You want it to be like honey. That is looking good. If you overdo the liquid in the glaze, you can always add a little bit more powdered sugar, all right? It's not science here, A little more dry, a little more wet. And we'll add 2 to 3 teaspoons of green food coloring. You want this to be festive Christmas wreath color? So whatever that means to you. See that like ribbon? That's what we're looking for. All right, a little bit more. So let's get dipping. So we'll let the excess drip off. I kind of like a tilt and swirl action with this. And then if you really want to get technical, when you bring the glaze up, you want to make sure that any excess falls in the middle and not unevenly down the sides. You can smell the bourbon too. I like adding flavor to the glaze. I think a lot of times these icing glazes, whether they're on cookies or donuts or whatnot, they're just sugar. So putting the bourbon in there or orange juice or lemon or some kind of flavoring in it really makes it pop. And the bourbon and the spice cake, I mean, that's a home run. What is a wreath without some festive holiday decoration? I have some sprinkles and some sugars and some gold beads. So go to town. It's your Christmas wreath. Decorate it however you want. I have these little candy straws. However you want to make your bow, go right ahead. And you don't want to wait too long before putting your sprinkles on because the glaze will set. Takes about 15 to 30 minutes for the glaze to fully set, and then you're good to go. And here we go, my mini spiced bundt cake wreaths. Let's get a taste. It tastes like the holidays. Those warm spices in the bundt cake, a little kick from that bourbon glaze, cute and delicious. I mean, I don't know, guys. If I were competing with this on Holiday Baking Championship, I think I'd win. Thank you for watching and joining me from my kitchen. I'll see you next week for another episode of Holiday Baking Championship Extra Sweet.